Yo guys, Donkin Dave here. Last time I did a video was on the license modification over there, and I said I was going to do a video on the things that I love and the things that I hate about the CB500X. So I'm going to do that now and let you guys just kind of know what my thoughts are on this, and I think I can be objective about this. I own the bike, so I'm not swayed one way or another to say it's great or say that it's trash. Either way, so I'm going to let you know what I really think about the bike, and I've been riding it for about 2 weeks now. I'm coming from a Yamaha FZ1 that I have turned into a sports tourer. So I think I have a pretty good idea about this bike and what it can do. So I'm going to go from the top to the bottom and just let you know what I think about it. Okay, first thing, we're going to go from the front. The brakes. Number one, the brakes. They are not great brakes. I will let you know that right now. This is a 500cc bike, and it doesn't have a lot of go. And also, it doesn't have a lot of whoa. So the brakes are really not good on this bike. I do not like that the rotor mounts directly to the wheel. It should be a floating rotor, similar to something that you would have in a CB500X or 1000 or what have you if you want to go Honda. But it needs to be a floating rotor. And as I stated in the previous videos, I've already replaced the rotor. The previous rotor was warped or bent from the impact from the wreck, and I just did not like that. And so when I'm going down the road, I press on the brake, on the front brake, and it's rotating like that. So it's really just not a very good smooth brake. I know that you have ABS, and some of you guys love that. I don't have ABS on this bike. Personally, I just think it's another thing that's going to break. So I don't want something like that. I just want to keep it simple and just have a regular braking system. The wheel is cheap, to be quite honest. I think that Honda could have done themselves a service if they just kept CBR 600 wheels and used them on either end of the bike. Honda really didn't do a good job on that. These are 17-inch wheels. You got a great choice in tires for this bike because they are 17-inch wheels. I love that about the bike, so that's a good thing. The fender is okay. It is flimsy, you know. It's a plastic fender. Let's just be quite honest about that. But underneath here, there is an X brace that goes across and that merges this bolt and this bolt on either side, and so this acts as like a fork brace underneath the fender. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I do know it's a bitch to get all the holes lined up so that you can mount the fender if you have to take it off. It's just a pain in the butt. It took me about 30 minutes to get everything to line up and everything properly when I did my rebuild here. Okay, so that's the front. As you can see, I have TKC 80 front tire on the bike, and I had the Pirelli original tires on there, and they had 8,000 miles on them, and they were bald. The previous owner had them bald. You'll also notice that I have taken off the reflector that was there on that side, and I took off the reflector that was on the back side. And again, I just don't like reflectors on the bike. I'll put something else on there that will be reflective, and you'll see that in a later video. The shocks, we're moving on to the bike. The shocks are wimpy, the shocks are weak, and on the 2013 edition, I did not have any adjustability on the shocks, so that sucks, and they're simply adequate for the bike. If you want to do a modification to the shocks, which I will be doing that in a future video, but the shocks on the original shocks on the forks, they're just kind of wimpy and they need to be replaced or modified. There's no preload adjustment on the 2013s. As I understand it, the later models of this bike, there is preload adjustment that you can do, so that would be a good thing. That'd be a great thing to do. Okay, moving on. The overall look of the bike is pretty damn cool. As you can see, I have debadged the bike by taking the Camo X off, and also the CB500X. I've taken that off so that it looks like a Honda. You just can't tell what kind of a Honda it is by looking at it. So it has a pretty cool look. I've had some people say that it looks like a bat bike. So if you follow Batman, it does look pretty cool. So I like that. Let's see what else. The front, the light is adequate. It does a decent job. The front fairings and everything here, you know, it's plastic. It's a plastic bike. So you have to understand that you just have a plastic bike. It's more or less a throwaway bike. And these parts they're pretty intricate if you have to take them apart or anything like that, take the bike apart. So that's one of the things that I kind of don't like about it so much. But you just have to accept that you've got a plastic bike. Okay, the tail, or the turn signal assemblies. This is a gripe that I'm going to have right here. I think that they look good, but if you notice, the turn signal assembly is the furthest piece out on the bike besides the handlebars. So if you have a tip over, this is going to break. And in this case, in my case, the previous owner did tip it and they broke it, and I had to get some JB weld, which worked out pretty damn well, to weld it up together. And the turn signal assembly comes off with detaching this one bolt right here. Now, that's cool. That's a great thing. But the bad thing about it is that the harness that the turn signal assembly mounts to is under here somewhere, and you've got to take all these plastic pieces off in order to get to the turn signal assembly to disconnect it. It would be much better if Honda had the harness in here somewhere, so you could just do a quick disconnect and replace the turn signal assembly very, very easily. Personally, I dread, if this thing breaks again, I'm going to dread going into all of this to get to the harness for the turn signal assembly. That's just going to be a pain in the butt. So that's another thing. Okay, moving on. These are not stock levers here, so they're okay. The clutch cable here is all right. The grips, as you British folks like to say, are rubbish. They're just rubbish. They're hard as a brick, and you have to replace those things real quick. I've heard nightmare stories about these bar ends being difficult to take off. I haven't tried it myself personally yet, so I'm going to work on that at some point in time. Again, the levers here are a non-issue. I don't really like on the plastic parts here, you know, this is a weak point, and as you can see, this has a crack in it, in this fairing right here, and right here. This is a wimpy part of the bike, and I wish Honda had done a better job of designing the fairings overall. I don't really like all this plastic stuff right here. I wish the plastic could have been like right here, and then you have a solid gas tank instead of having all these as the Brits would say, fiddly pieces right here. Don't really like that all that much. The ergonomics on this bike are really good, though. I will say that about the design of this bike. Once you ride the bike, if you don't have a CB500X and you're trying to figure out if you would be comfortable on it, I think you would. And from what I gathered in riding this bike, and I rode this bike on some gravel roads and also on some very twisty roads, it really handles like a motard. You're sitting up, you know, the handlebars are sitting up, you've got a good view of the road, and it's not bent over like you're being on a sport bike. You're sitting up. So the handling is very much like a motard. So you would have, if you put sport tires on here, it would be like riding on a motard, a 500cc motard. Pretty cool. I like that. Okay, so another thing, the gas cap right here does not have a hinge. This is on the 2013 models. I hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it, hate it. As I understand it, Honda has improved on themselves and had they now have a hinged gas cap. But really, Honda, you didn't do yourselves any favors by having a non-hinged gas cap to start out with. Okay. I'm going to talk about a few things here that are kind of particular to me. When I bought this bike, it had been wrecked in the front, and the shifting arm had been bent. And part of the bend was also in this shifting linkage right here. So I had to take the linkage off, top to bottom, and bend the lever out and get all that straight. On my Yamaha FC1, it's a solid piece. I mean, it's solid. You're going to have to work hard to bend that piece. So Honda, you're cheap, because this thing basically is a piece of wire. You know, it's cheap. It's just flimsy. So I don't really like that. The frame and everything, I wish that the frame were a true frame. You know, they have the motor as a piece of the frame right here where these mounts are. So I don't like it, but I accept it as what it is. You know, it's part of the bike, and that's the way it is. The motor itself, I love the motor. The motor is very, very smooth. It has a 6-speed transmission, so you can't argue with that. And it gets up and gets going. Not fast. I mean, this is probably one of the slowest bikes you can buy, but it gets you going. It's got decent torque for a 500cc bike, and if you want to cruise at 70 or 80 miles an hour, I wouldn't recommend it, but you can do it. It's not that bad a ride to do that with. What else? The seat. I rode 9 hours the other day, and when I got home, my butt was on fire. So the seat is crap. You're going to need to do something in the way of getting a Corbin or Seat Concepts or something to modify the seat so that you can be more comfortable, because that is just not going to do it. And guys, if you want to ride and you want to ride with a girl on the back, you're going to have to do something about the rear seat here, because she is not going to be on there more than an hour and a half. That's just the bottom line. You're just not going to get your girl to stay on that bike for too long. Okay, what else? Access to the battery is right under here, and that's great. And even the air cleaner, pretty cool. You can get to it without having to take the tank off, which is awesome. I can't do that on my Yamaha FC1. So that's super. I congratulate Honda on that. Now, one thing that Honda really screwed up on was the mechanism here to unlatch the seat. As you guys remember, there's usually a helmet lock. There's no helmet lock on this motorcycle. Another cop-out, cheap way to go, Honda. You screwed up on that. So now we got to try to find a helmet lock for our motorcycles. That sucks. That just sucks. So bad move there, Honda. Now I got to find some other way to lock up my helmet. Thing I don't like here, the clutch cable is coming out and there's not a cover or a nipple or something to protect the clutch cable from getting grit or getting dirty. The Yamaha FC1 has that. This does not. And that's another quality control issue there with Honda. I just don't like how they have done this. The exhaust is heavy, but it is quiet and it is very how should I say this? It's adequate. I mean, I know that Honda has to go by European standards for emissions and quietness and all that good stuff. So I understand that can be cured by getting an aftermarket pipe, which I'm sure that most of us will probably end up doing that anyway. What else? The brakes on the rear are, again, they function. They're not strong. They're nothing compared to my Yamaha FC1. As you can tell, I'm a fan of the Yamaha FC1, and I bought this bike to turn it into a gravel runner. So the brakes are just adequate on this. I don't like them. I don't hate them. They work, and that's about it. And as you can tell, this is another one of those floating rotors right there. So that's pretty cool. Let's see the rear assemblies. The adjuster here for the chain. Again, this is the cheap way to go for motorcycles, and Honda did that exactly. So getting the holes to line up so that you can put your axle through here, because I have had to change the wheel already because I put the tires on. It's a pain in the ass. So I don't like that. The rear end of the bike, again, you've got the license plate bracket and everything. You got this tail that comes down. I mean, it's just kind of a funny looking bike, to be quite honest. And if you accept that, that's okay. I guess I do. I'm going to modify it again a little bit more. But if you're going to do any dual sport riding or gravel riding, you want to have a little bit of a fender there anyway, so you don't get grit and mud put up on your back when the wheel rotates like that. The rear shock, I've heard good things, I've heard bad things about the rear shock. As I understand it, it is a preload only kind of shock, and you can do that. So you know, that's the way it is. There are modifications you can do. There are some added shocks you can get to turn that around. Let's see, what else? The body work down here is really more or less just for show. It's going to deflect the most minor of rocks, and that's it. So if you want to think about this bike being a true dual sport right out of the box, think again. You're going to need to get a skid plate for the rear end, because underneath or just above the bodywork here is the oil pan, and if you hit a rock with your oil pan, you're going to have a crack there, and you're going to lose your bike. You're going to lose your motor. So you need to make some corrections on that. All of this is more or less correctable with some add-on pieces. What else? What else do I love about the bike? I love the motor, and I also hate the motor. The motor, it's a 500cc bike, okay? Let's just be quite honest here. It's not going to go anywhere fast. It has about 130 306 mile per hour top speed. You're not going to accelerate fast. You're not going to, you know, break any sound barriers with this. So I love and hate the motor. The last time I checked, I got 77 miles to a gallon in fuel economy, and that's pretty damn awesome. I just cannot argue with that whatsoever. But I have to understand that it's a 500cc bike, and it's just not going to go anywhere too fast, or at least it's not going to accelerate that fast. What else? Fuel injection. It's got fuel injection, and I see no reason whatsoever with it being a 500cc bike to do anything more to try to get performance out of the bike. 42 horsepower, and that's it. That's all you're gonna get. So that's that. I will end up turning or doing a mod to put a slip-on on there so I can get maybe a little bit more power out of the bike, taking the muffler off, the heavy muffler off, and doing that modification. But if you're gonna buy this bike, here's the thing, you know, you have to know what it is you want the bike to do, okay? Now, I'm going to turn this bike into a gravel runner because I have these knobby tires on here, and I've got some other add-ons that I'm going to put on here that'll make it a great gravel runner. But if you wanted to turn this into a motard, put your sport tires on there and go have a good time. If you want to turn it into a sport touring bike, you can do that too. You can mount up your sport touring tires and put on some bags and load it up with a GPS, and you can go have a great time as a very, very lightweight sport tourer, believe it or not. And it's going to be comfortable enough to get you where you want to go in a reasonable amount of time, you know, just going that route. So this bike, you know, I don't have a whole lot of love for it, but I do appreciate it for what it can do. It can be a gravel runner. It can be, if you do the Rally Raid Mod 3, you can turn this into one heck of a dual sport. You can turn it into a motard. You could turn it into a sport tourer. You can turn it into just a nice commuter. You can just put a box on the rear end there and use it as a commuter bike. I mean, but this bike has a lot of possibilities to do a lot of different things. And I think as I get on the bike and ride it more, I'll probably end up appreciating it a little bit more, you know. So that's it for now. The things that I love and the things that I hate about this bike, I'm sure I'll find some more, but that's it for now. These are my objective impressions about this bike. So I hope it was helpful to you. Guys, I've got a lot of modifications I'm going to be doing here real soon because I've ordered a bunch of stuff off of Amazon and off of eBay. And so I'll be going into that, and I'll also be doing some rides into some different areas here in North Carolina, here USA. And I hope you will appreciate that. Guys, please like this. Please subscribe, and please share it with your friends. All right? Donk and Dave, out.